All right, guys, we are back. I know it's been a little bit, we took a little bit of a break over the summer craziness and vacations and family and work and everything. But we're getting back after it. So, welcome back to the next episode of the Brick by Brick podcast.
Woo!
Today, yeah, insert, clapping sound effects here. Uh, Today is going to be a fun one because we wanted to talk a little bit about what we actually do on a day-to-day basis. There's a ton of misconceptions and myths and, preconceived notions about recruiters and agency recruiters, and we're called all sorts of different things. But we thought that this would be a good topic to kind of jump right into. So what we did was we thought we would ask our kids, first and foremost, what they think that we do. And between the three of us, our kids are at different age ranges. So we thought it'd be funny to kind of ask them. So I'll start because I have the youngest, I think, one of them. So mine is 3. So I asked him, "Hey, Theo, what does Daddy do for work?" And he told me Paw Patrol. So apparently I'm a
But do you
crime
think you're a
fighting.
part of the Paw Patrol or that you watch it as a career?
That's just the answer that I got. So who knows?
I love it.
In his little mind, Daddy's a crime fighting
You're a
superhero
superhero
puppy.
dog.
I'll take it, right? But I also
love
have
it.
a 16-year-old, and I asked him, and he's a little bit more informed since I've been doing this work for as long as he's known. So he had a pretty good answer, and he said that I find people jobs. So
Nailed it.
that was pretty solid, right? What about you, Sarah? When you asked your boys, what did they say?
Well, my youngest is 5. He just turned 5. And all he knows is work calls. I sit in my office and I do work calls because I'm always yelling at him. I'm on a work call, so you can't come in here. And my oldest, who's 7, he'll be almost 8, thinks I call people and ask them for money, and that's how we get money to buy toys. So, like,
I
you're
mean,
not
he's
100%
not
wrong,
wrong.
right? Like, that's kind of part of it, but yeah. So, lots of phone calls. They know because I'm always talking to people.
They think you're
But
just busy, like type,
yeah,
call, give me your
give us
money.
money. My kids need toys. Please give me money.
They're not wrong at all.
They're
That's
not.
so funny. Chris, what about your boys?
Yeah, so I got 2 boys, 9 and 7, both different personalities. My 9-year-old's more sensible. He said that Daddy helps people make money. And then my 7-year-old, who's a little crazy, who knows some of the people that currently work for me and have worked for me in the past, tells me that Daddy fires James and Nate all the time, and then also sits in his office, makes money to buy me presents. So they were the answers that I got.
So there's
That's
a
a good one.
consistent theme here, right? Like that our
Yeah.
kids just think that we work and ask people for money to buy them things.
Right. Obviously. All
It's
to buy
not
the toys. All the crap.
not far off base. So I think that's pretty funny. So I guess if we wanted to just kind of jump right in, right? So, between the three of us, we've been doing this line of work for a long time. I know this is over 10 years I've been in staffing. And it's interesting that when you have conversations, and whether that's, in business conversations and meetings or just out in life and talking to folks, there's so many different ideas about what we do and what staffing is. And it's funny because sometimes I'll tell people like, "Oh, I'm a recruiter," and they immediately think like for the military. They're like, "Oh, you are like do you go to high schools and recruit high school kids before they
That is
graduate?"
funny.
And I'm like, "What? Like where did no, not at all. Completely respect our military, but that's not
Yeah.
what I do." Um, so I think, it's just funny. It's one of the things that kind of popped in my head when I was preparing my notes for today. But I guess what are some things that you guys hear in terms of some myths around recruiting or what we do, or, you know, our day-to-day life, and then we can kind of clear some of that up afterwards. But I guess what are some things that you guys have heard over the years?
I think sometimes people look at us as like used car salesmen, like we're sneaky and trying to pull fast ones over
Lazy.
on people,
Yeah.
which to me is like, I find laughable. I mean, I think in any profession, there are people out there that aren't, the best people, right? But that's just happens with in life in general. But sometimes when you tell people that you're a recruiter, I feel like you get like that look that they give you, like, don't talk to me or whatnot. So, I mean, I would think that's one of the ones that comes to my mind right away.
Yeah, I started out only doing IT recruiting, and I feel like IT recruiters especially have like a bad rep. I mean, I know why, but and the same thing, like I used to be really embarrassed going to networking events and saying that I was a recruiter because I felt like people generally felt like Chris said, we were just like sleazy. And like I think the biggest misconception, especially with tech, is um like you call all these people, you send their resume everywhere, they never hear from you again. You send their resume tons of places without, actually telling the candidate where they're going or who's going to see their profile. And so I do think there's a lot of, especially for like mid-level, like mid-career candidates are a little bit more, I think, hesitant sometimes because they're afraid that they're not going to be working with a good recruiter, because there are a lot out there who, don't represent them accurately, or maybe even represent the firm accurately that they're interviewing with. And so there's a lot of backpedaling sometimes we have to do, and like reassurance on the front end of, here's how we work. Like, I'm not going to send your resume anywhere without talking to you about it first. So I think just like the trust, sometimes there is a really bad misconception that we can't be trusted, or that, we're not going to really work with integrity, which unfortunately there are a lot of firms out there that, add to this problem because of how they operate. So you're kind of always like battling against that when you talk to people.
I think that also, I think it's all kind of changed over the years. When I started in staffing back in 2011, 2012, something like that, there was like this really nasty misconception about, recruiters or staffing agencies, and we were being called like headhunters a lot, and in a really negative kind of connotation, almost making it seem like we, and there are definitely, it's a whole industry and business in itself, but that we were charging candidates, money to find them a job, and then charging the client when the position is filled at the same time. Like, we're kind of double dipping, which was not the case. And that was, I was in my early 20s, and that was a really difficult thing for me to kind of navigate because I didn't understand where that was coming from. I was like, why would you think that? Like that's not what we do. So it's a really hard thing to kind of combat in a sales meeting, when I'm 23 years old, new to the industry, and I'm on the phone or in face to face with a VP or director, level client, and they're kind of just like, well, you do this and you're just another headhunter. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not. I'm not just another headhunter. I'm Curtis. And I'm amazing. So
Let me show you.
That out. Yeah. So I was like, that's such a weird, such kind of like a big misconception about who we are and what we do as a business, to try to kind of overcome a little bit. And to your point, Sarah, there are definitely companies and firms, in the US, globally, that take a lot of shortcuts, that, do a lot of things that give us a bad rap, right? So we're also kind of combating that on a day-to-day basis. So I guess on the flip side of that, how would you describe what we do on a day-to-day basis? What are the positives in your functions every day?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of for the candidates, like maybe a lot of it is, I'm not, I think especially like where we three of us work today, like we're not high volume. So if I'm reaching out to someone or talking to someone, it's because specifically I have a role for them, and or maybe they just have a really good background and I want to introduce myself and just have them in my network, and also to be in their network. Like, I think so much about a job search is just having good conversations and networking, because you don't know where they're going to lead. I mean, I think all three of us have talked about how 90% of our career changes have been through people in our network. And so I think just giving advice a lot of times, even if I don't have something for a candidate, like I try to always be very honest and transparent about, you know, whether they're going to be moving forward, if they're not going to be moving forward, like keeping in touch, because I do think because of the reputation, like we have little leeway for, if we miss an email or a call, then there's like this automatic reaction because people are so used to being blown off by recruiters. So I try really hard in the beginning, like very upfront, to lay out like expectations of when you'll hear from me and how often you can expect to hear from me. And, don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have questions out, right? And still want to like give them confidence in me if they ever need help, or they need to hire, or they're actively on the job, or they know someone who's looking, that they feel like I'm a trusted person, if that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. So transparency has to be, for us, kind of like
Yeah.
the foundation of why we do this type of work day in and day out, right? Like we have to
Yeah.
be honest and lead with integrity. So absolutely. What about you, Chris?
Yeah.
Well, so I guess it'll go hand in hand with another myth. I think people think that recruiting, and I guess agency recruiting in general, is easy. And I kind of laugh at that. I don't know if people just look at me and think if he can do it, I can do it type of thing, because for whatever reason. But to me, there's, it's not like we sit here, we post a job, we get all these wonderful candidates, and all these companies are, knocking down our door. They're like, hey, we want to pay you this fee to find us this person. So there's so much more that goes into the job than what people probably actually think. So I mean, all of us are full desk recruiters. So to kind of give you, insight, and obviously most people that are in it know it, like we're tasked with going out and generating new business. A lot of that is through, outbound calls, networking events, marketing emails, and in that there's a lot of time where you're not getting anything, you're not hearing anything, and it's like, well, why am I doing this? I'm not seeing any success. But the more you stick with it, things start to kind of go your way, and you start to have some conversation. So like on the part of it with the business development side, it's a lot of outreach, and then on the candidate side, it's just as hard to find good candidates for jobs, right? There's so many things that go into someone's job search, not just, okay, this person is a CFO, this job's a CFO, it's located in in a commutable distance for you. It doesn't mean that person's a perfect fit. There's so many variables that goes into someone's job search, especially when they are a passive job seeker who don't have to leave, that really have to be kind of wooed in order to make a move for a new position. So just in my experience, there's so many ups and downs. I try to explain it to people that like our job's almost like a roller coaster. You just got to ride it out to the end, and if you do it the right way, you're gonna see success. But there's gonna be some bumps in the road along the way.
100%. I think our industry is very unique, and I was thinking about this. I think three of us have talked about this before, but there aren't many fields that are exactly similar to what we do. I kind of sometimes think about it like maybe real estate would probably be like the closest thing, because we're always stuck in the middle. We are never the decision maker. We're the broker. We're, in between the candidate that needs a job and the client that needs somebody to fill the seat. Right. So I think, to Sarah's point before, leading with transparency, always letting somebody know that, I can't predict the future. I don't make those decisions. I can only get you, your foot in the door for an interview, and then you kind of have to take it from there. I think one of the myths, if you will, about what we do is that we are just out here extending offers and giving people jobs every 2 minutes. Like, God, I wish like, that would be great for us. We work on commission, so that would be amazing, but it doesn't happen that way. And I think sometimes, people are just like, well, what the heck do you do all day? Like, why aren't you finding me a job? I haven't heard from you. Well, we have to pay attention to the market. We have to move, as our clients move, the season, things change during the summer and spring. Like, our job is constantly shifting. And a big part of what we do is having to pay attention to what's going on around us in the market, in, our specific verticals. For me in supply chain, I'm constantly looking at what's going on with tariffs and the ports and ships, hitting bridges, like super unfortunate things that are happening, but they directly impact,
Yeah.
organizations that I do business with and candidates that are looking for employment. Like these things have a domino effect. And a part of our job is paying attention to those things. So when someone is looking at us from the outside and wondering like, what's happening? Well, there's like 1,000 things happening
Yeah.
all at the
I
same
used to
time.
always I used to always tell people, like, when I was interviewing for like my team or like a company I worked for who hadn't worked in a recruiting agency, like you're, we're like the CEO of our own little mini company, basically. Like, because you are building a book of business, you're building clients, but you're also managing the paperwork and you're managing, the candidates and the applicant flow and like doing all the coordinating. And so it's, I think, a really unique career that you get exposed to so many different aspects of business, and we get to work with so many different industries. Like it really is just so unique in all of the different skills that you can acquire, and how you can, be in this world and transition into some other type of role while having like all this knowledge, that you didn't have before around the business and the market and,
Right.
just all of those things. Like it just exposes you to a lot of different types of skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking like, is there a way I was thinking about like to myself, is there a way to describe what we do in 5 words or less? And my list of words that I came up with was like 30. Like, like we're like a friend, we're a counselor, we're a recruiter, we're a salesperson, we're a collections
Yeah.
agency,
Yeah, right.
we have to track down our money sometimes, like account management, like there's all these different things, leaders,
Hmm.
there's so many different words to use to describe what we do on a day-to-day basis, and it's overwhelming. Like it can
Yeah.
be a lot.
Yeah.
um I guess so. Sarah, let me ask you something, right? In terms of from a candidate perspective and utilizing a firm and working with, a staff firm, an agency, whatever industry it might be, what would be some of the benefits of on the candidate side of someone wanting to utilize a firm to help with their search?
Yeah. I mean, I think on the candidate side, it is similar to some of the things I shared about just like networking, and also, a lot of people that I talk to, especially like if you're really early in your career, jobs like looking for a job is overwhelming. It just is it can be a very overwhelming experience, especially if, you know, you are actively looking for a new job, or you're in career transition. Like it can just feel daunting. You don't know where to start. You don't, some people who have had long careers and are suddenly on the market have not put a resume together in 20 years. So there are so many different areas where we can add value and try and help in terms of here's what you should put on your resume versus, you don't need to put that you were a server like at Applebee's in, 1995. You've been had this whole career since then. But there's like little things that, as we know, some companies will look at and pass over because of one, thing or inconsistency on a resume. We are able to provide so much more intel because there's someone we know, we've worked with. We can tell someone, this person is really tough to read, but that's just their personality. You know how intimidating that can be when you go into a conversation and feel like, does this person hate me? Are they just like putting this on for show? And so giving some of that insight can just ease some of the nerves. But even if it's not preparing for an interview or something, like especially today, a lot of what we hear from candidates is, I'm applying to all these jobs, I'm not hearing back. Like I know that there's so many people applying. Um, Giving people some insight into, okay, well, here's what else you can do. Like find this person and connect with them on LinkedIn, or, you know, find someone in HR or recruiting and reach out to them to say, hey, I applied to this job. Like just all these little tips and tricks that I think sometimes seem so obvious to us because this is our career, that people are like, oh, I didn't think to do that, or like I didn't know if that would be weird, or um going off of that, with a lot of the misconceptions are, I think sometimes people assume we don't have their best interest, like we're just fee chasers and, we want to make this happen for, at whatever cost. And that somehow our fee is going to get in the way of like us representing them in the best way or getting them the most competitive offer. And I think it actually is the opposite. Like I literally sometimes tell candidates, like the more money I'm getting you, it's the more money I'm getting for myself. So I'm always going to be incentivized to get you the best offer. And also, like, I don't want to place someone in a position that's a mismatch if I can tell or I know that from the offset, because that's not going to help my business. And finding a recruiter that you can really trust. And again, just I kind of always say we're like a sports agent, like for the recruiter, like we're trying to represent you as best as possible. And, we're in your, in your corner, like we're in your
Yeah.
corner trying to get you where you want to be.
Another, like, I guess misconception sometimes is candidates worry that if like our job isn't like their top choice, that like they don't want to tell us that for some reason. And I tell everyone, listen, like I'm not naive enough to think every job that I bring you is going to be, your top choice. What
Right.
my job is to try to get you the best possible offer for this one. So if the other, if you say, hey, Chris, like, I'm really interested in the role you have, but this other role is, a little bit better, and here's why. Well, then I'm going to ask you, okay, well, what does the company I'm representing need to do, offer you in order to kind of put that one above the other one? And if there's nothing that they can do at the end of the day, that is fine. That's not going to
Yeah.
prevent me from representing you moving forward or presenting you with other opportunities or whatever it might be. Like where it gets frustrating for us as recruiters is like, we're going off of your words, right? If you're telling me something, I'm reiterating that to the client. And then
Right.
when it comes to the end, and if that doesn't come to fruition, what you told me, and nothing has changed, well, then, we have to go back to the client with egg on our face. And then that hurts our relationship with our client. And then it's in our, like Sarah said, it's like, we're not just going to place you to collect a fee, right? Like when we talk to candidates, we find out what their skill set is and really what they're looking for in a new opportunity. And it's in our best interest to place you in a place that you're going to be happy with, because, as you continue in your career, whether that's you're hiring a team underneath you or like eventually down the road you look to leave again, like we want you to remember us so that you come
Yeah.
back to us to work with you again. So
Yeah.
like there are recruiters out there, right, that will be like, they're transactional. Like, I don't care that
Yeah.
this, they're going to withhold information. They're just going to place you wherever. But that's, the good ones that get repeat business. I mean, they're not going to do that. So it's not beneficial for a recruiter to do that. So.
Really quick before we move on, Sarah, you mentioned something before that drummed up another myth debunking thing that I want to mention. I have across my career, I have come across many candidates that for some strange reason, and maybe some firms do this somewhere, they think that our our fee, like our commission is coming out of their salary, like whatever they're being paid by the client. Like they're afraid to work with agencies because they don't want to pay us, and they think that that money is going to come directly out of whatever salary we negotiate for them. So to your point before, they think that, we're just kind of like money grabbing, like, oh, let's try to get you the most possible because I'm going to take more from you, when
Yeah.
that's really not the case at all. So for anyone that doesn't know, we are paid by the client. we
Right.
do not take money at all from the
If
candidate.
they don't have budget to pay us separately, we're not going to be calling you about
Right.
jobs.
100%. But yeah, you had mentioned something before, and I wanted to remember to bring that up.
I think off of that too, which I don't know where you're going after this, but a candidate might get a raise in the middle of a interview process, right? Like, and suddenly now their comp needs are a little bit different. And so then you go back and say, this has just happened. So, the number might need to be closer to here. And I've had clients over my career think like, well, you're just trying to, get a bigger fee out of it. We're trying to help you make the best offer so that this kind of, takes the job. Like our job is to, like Chris said, relay all the facts, to the client from the candidate and to the candidate from the client, and keep you informed on how to stay competitive. And again, like us giving all these updates and us, negotiating some of these things, like a lot of the time it's so that you're positioned as the number one and you're being as competitive as you can be for this candidate, because they're interviewing you too. Like some of these folks have multiple companies they're looking at, or like Chris said, they're passive. Like they don't have to leave. Like it's going to take something to really compel them to move. So anyway, that just popped in my head.
No, you're 100% right, and it does lead into what I was going to ask next, because to that point, we look at the bigger picture, right? We're not just looking at, oh, I hope I get the offer for my candidates so that they fill the job and I get paid commission, because we want that person to stay.
Right.
Like it's not about just them getting the offer and accepting it. They have to stay there, in order for us to maintain a positive relationship, with our client and work with them again. Like that's a part of the benefit, is for us to continue that account management piece of what we were talking about earlier, following up with the client, following up with the candidate, making sure that everything is okay, and being there for both parties throughout the initial, onset of the process. But yeah, no, I wanted to swing that the other way, right? And ask you, Chris, I guess we talked a lot about the candidate perspective and the benefits for them to work with a firm. I guess from the client side, from a company perspective, what would be some of the benefits for a company that's looking to fill a role or a difficult search to outsource it to a firm?
Yeah, I mean, we're all subject matter experts in our certain discipline, right? So for me, it's accounting and finance. So I mean, that's the type of people I talk to on a day in, day out basis. So I mean, I would say we can provide quality candidates in a very timely manner on a search, instead of posting a job. I mean, you see all these jobs on LinkedIn. There's hundreds and hundreds of applicants. Like who has the time to go through that? I hate posting jobs, right? Because you get inundated with people and you don't have the time to go through them all. So from our perspective, we can get you candidates over that a recruiter that has the years of experience that we do has fully vetted. We know everything about their experience. We know everything about why they left certain positions, what they're looking for in an opportunity, what they're looking for in comp. So when you partner with us, really at the end of the day, all you need to do is give me your schedule and when you're available, and we can send you and schedule these interviews with candidates that are going to be a fit for the role. The other things that I would say is benefit is, when we do, instead of just getting a resume and then trying to like put the pieces together of like why this person left, or like I'm a little bit more curious about, this part of the resume, we highlight that when we send over the resume, we put it right up together. So if there is like a short stint, they have in their career, and most people have them, you kind of highlight why that person left the role, and maybe why they left some other positions, and what they're looking for in comp, and some other things that might be important to them if they are going to make a move. And then I would say one of the biggest benefits is throughout the process, we kind of stay in touch with both sides. So like we said, we're a broker of information. We're sharing information with the client. Hey, you're really interested in this one candidate. Here's where they're at in their search. They have two other things that they're looking at that they're, towards the end stages. Just want to kind of keep you posted on that. And then, how many times when people apply to a job where they work directly with the company, salary's never talked about until like the end, and it's like, wait, this job only pays 100K. Like I'm looking for like 200 plus. So like we know what they're looking for in comp. We can also give clients good market information on like what other companies around their size and in their specific market are paying to stay kind of up there with what other companies are offering. So there's a lot of variables that go into partnering with an outside firm. I know everyone looks at the cost of it, but like what's the cost of making a bad hire, or how much is your time worth going through a process for 3 or 4 months and like spinning your wheels and like not getting the candidate pool that you're looking for. And you reach out to someone who specializes in that discipline. I mean, they're going to be able to provide value to you pretty immediately. So
yeah, I mean, I think one of the big reasons why a lot of our clients come to us initially or come back to us repeatedly is because the post and wait like you mentioned before, is a really dangerous game to play because the job's going to stay open. There is a huge cost factor to having an open position and needing to fill it. And it takes weeks or months to, even go through all of the resumes, do all of the interviews, and that could be background checks and drug tests as well. If there's, different systems tests that they have to take depending on the industry, there's all sorts of things that factor into the interview process, which can take, 8 to 12 weeks. And that entire time, somebody else has to do the work, or the work isn't being done at all. And there's a cost that's associated with that. So for us, when we have clients that are coming to us and looking for a specific skill set or systems knowledge or degree or background, industry experience, the candidates that we're talking to, a lot of them aren't actively on the job market. We are being proactive in reaching out to them directly and presenting them with an opportunity that they may have not considered before, or because they're not active on the search, they didn't even see the posting on LinkedIn. So they're not one of the 200 people that applied within the last 24 hours. So we are presenting candidates that they've never seen before, they haven't heard about before. And that's really exciting when we make those connections and we make those matches.
Because most of our, sorry. Like I don't know about you guys, but I would say like 60 to 70% of like the candidates that are kind of in, my network on a, daily basis are more passive, selective candidates, right? Like it's not that like they're dying to get out of where they are. I mean, there might be some things, going on that would cause them maybe like career growth, or maybe, they're worried about something or whatever it might be, but they're not applying to jobs on LinkedIn, right? So like, we're providing, to what you said, we're providing companies with a candidate pool that isn't necessarily going to be available by just posting a job, because a lot of people also, if they're passively looking, don't want their information out there on the internet. Who knows who knows them at the company that they're applying for, and then gets back to their, their current company, and there's a lot of issues that can kind of happen from there. So that's the other thing.
Yeah. Sarah, any thoughts?
Yeah,
on the client side?
I think the other thing too is, which sometimes you might not have perception on or have insight to, is being that middleman. Like there's definitely been times too where there's red flags that maybe they're not showing the client, but we're hearing or we're seeing, right? Like there's inconsistencies, or, there's just things that they're saying that aren't adding up, or, concerns that you want to bring to the client so that there's not a bad hire made. And I think that in those to the table and just having that transparency around certain things so that they're making the best decision for them. I think also too, like sometimes candidates are afraid to ask certain questions, or like if the candidate has a concern that they don't know how to like bridge the topic with the client, we can help mend some of that. Like there's been so many scenarios where, I think if I or a recruiter hadn't been in the middle, like the candidate would have walked away because of a misunderstanding, or like just some small like miscommunication can ruin an entire process, where you don't have someone like us there saying, okay, hold on, like what happened? Like how did you take it? And then we can kind of go back and talk to the client and figure out where the breakdown was and solve the issue. And then it works out and they, get the job and they start. But when you don't have someone there to sort of manage some of those nuances, like then it just implodes, right? Like, and it just goes away. So we can kind of provide that cushion.
Yeah, and I think for both sides, there's definitely a ton of benefits for candidates and clients both to utilize us and to work with firms, especially ones that are subject matter experts in their specific, line of business. I always think it's interesting when, even on the candidate side, when you reach out to someone, say like, hey, I have this opportunity, and they're like, no, thanks, I don't want to talk to you. Yeah. I would never understand that. I would take the meeting, I would take the call if it's 15 minutes to hear, about an opportunity, because even if that role isn't what I'm looking for, it's a networking opportunity, and you never know what's going to happen. Even when we present a candidate with an interview with a client, like the client is interested, and then the candidate comes back and they're like, nah, I don't think I'm going to go, or they don't show up, or cancel last minute. I will never understand that, because even if you go and that job isn't right, I've had it happen so many times where the hiring manager says like, "Hey, this position isn't the right one, but wait right here. Let me run and go get, the director of sales because I think you would be great for that team." Like you never know what can happen, and you also never know where you're going to see these people again.
Yeah.
Right.
Like down the road, you could end up working for that person and you both end up at a different company 5 years later and they remember you, and like that's the key that I think a lot of people miss about utilizing us, utilizing our knowledge and our expertise. Like I definitely would, and not just because we do it every day. But if somebody said to me like, "Hey, your resume or your profile on LinkedIn looks great. Like, let's have a conversation. Help me with my resume." Like, I'm not active on my search. I haven't looked for a job in 10 years. What are employers looking for? What's going to make me more marketable?
Yeah.
Even to that point, so many people don't even think to update their resume and match it to their LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
Like the information, the dates are off. I've so many times at senior C-suite level candidates, I'm helping them with their resumes and there's words that are misspelled. I've had candidates misspell their name on their resume and they don't even notice. Like so many different things, and they're from small things to very large pieces, topics that we can assist with. So before we get out of here, right, I want to ask, and this is a very broad question, but just curious, me and the folks that are watching, what keeps you doing this work every day, right? We've said it multiple times throughout our conversation that we've all been doing this a long time, right? A piece of it. Yeah, a piece of it. Glutton for punishment. But when you wake up in the morning, and anybody that we hire, we kind of have the same conversation with them, right? Like you have to wake up in the morning and want to do this work because you get more no's than yeses. There are more losses than wins. Like you have to have a little bit of crazy in you to do this every day. But I'm curious for the two of you, what keeps you doing it?
I mean, I get bored really easily, and I'm someone who like thrives in chaos and the weeds, even though it might not seem that way, but I need to feel busy. Like I like how this job it feels different every day. Like some days I wake up and I'm on back-to-back phone calls, and some days I wake up and I have a lot of meetings or I have a networking, coffee or event. And I am someone who needs that constant change of pace. And the other thing, like, is honestly, I'm also a control freak. And although there's like very little we can control about anything in this job because our product is people, the excitement of owning like my income and what I'm going to do, like my success is all on me. Like there's nobody else that's going to make me successful in this job. Like working with a great team is important, and having a good team around you, of course, like those are all important aspects. But at the end of the day, I could have all those things, and if I don't do what I need to do, I'm not going to be successful. And that's also like just a challenge every week of I need to have a kick-ass week. And I am someone who needs that constant change of pace. And the other thing, like, is honestly, I'm also a control freak. And although there's like very little we can control about anything in this job because our product is people, the excitement of owning like my income and what I'm going to do, like my success is all on me. Like there's nobody else that's going to make me successful in this job. Like working with a great team is important, and having a good team around you, of course, like those are all important aspects. But at the end of the day, I could have all those things, and if I don't do what I need to do, I'm not going to be successful. And that's also like just a challenge every week of I need to have a kick-ass week. And yes, the lows are very low, but the highs are really, really high too.
Yeah.
And there's just no other, I was in transition not that long ago, and I, thought about, do I leave the industry, agency? Do I go internal? And honestly, I had one interview and was like, no, I would literally die in this role. Like it's just not for me. Like I need the fast pacedness, the challenge, and it just can be really rewarding. And I don't think there's any other career where you get those things.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Chris? What do you think?
I guess there's a couple different aspects. First, I like the challenge, right? The challenge every day of like someone asked me like how much money you make. Like I don't know any given year how much money I'm going to make. Like every year could be different, but I like the challenge that this job brings. I like the competitiveness that it brings. I like the fact that like the amount of work that you put in, you can see the financial reward, and not that money is the end all be all, but you can make a really good living in this line of work, and which then can like give you the reward of being able to provide for your family and do things that you didn't think you kind of be able to do before you got into this line of work. So I mean, from that aspect, and then the other aspect, I would say I just like meeting like and learning more about different companies. I think like talking to like CEOs and presidents of companies that like started something you didn't even think about and turned it into a pretty lucrative business. I think I like that part of it. And then also being able to kind of help candidates that are, maybe down on their luck or are chasing something that they've been searching in their career and be able to find an opportunity for them and place them in that. I think, that is something that is pretty cool. And like one of like the things that I'll always remember like being in this is probably back in like 2018, I helped place this candidate, and he was out of work for a while, and then ended up finding him a job. And I'll never forget, he delivered a 6-pack of IPA beer called Headhunter, which I thought was pretty cool, to my office in Philly. And like he was just like very grateful for helping him on the search. And I think that the reward of being able to help change somebody's life for the better, I think is another cool aspect of the job that kind of keeps you coming back every day. So.
Yeah, I think what you just said is my big why, right? Like I like being able to make an impact. I like the idea that if I were to fill a high level position or even a mid level, whatever it is, it's moving that company forward, right? Like that person that we find that, needle in the haystack that they spent 2 months looking for and we found them, is that person's going to make an impact on that organization. They're going to help push the company forward and grow and all those good things. And then on the flip side, to your point, Chris, like I've had so many candidates that were out of work for months or a year, and they've done 100 interviews and applied 1,200 times, and they just couldn't find anything. But we connected on the right day, found the right role, and it was the right fit. And they're like, "Thank you. I prayed for this. Like I didn't know what I was going to do. I was running out of savings." Like so many different stories that you hear. And if we're able to play a small part in their life in that way, we talk about it all the time, right? At BCS, we change lives, and we joke around, about it, but in some cases it's very true. So yeah, I think for me that's why I do this every day, and it does afford me the opportunity to, be flexible and spend a lot of time with my children and raise my kids and all those good things. And yeah, I mean, I don't think I plan to change it anytime soon, but I think that kind of leads us to how we're going to wrap it up, right? Like a lot of people try the agency life and it doesn't work, which is completely fine. We call it the dark side when you move over to internal. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about that on our next episode, is what the internal life looks like, corporate recruiting versus agency life, and how those partnerships can work and those synergies can work still concurrently. And we do have a special guest, so we'll get more into that on the next time. But for now, that's it. See you guys later.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.